This is breaking news from KSL, your news specialists.
You can't stop fairness and equality from marching forward.
Breaking news, a federal judge strikes down Utah's same-sex marriage ban, saying the amendment violates constitutional rights. The controversial ruling came down just a few hours ago and already mixed emotion from both sides of the issue.
The federal judge ruled that Utah's law passed by voters in 2004 violates gay and lesbian couples' right to due process and equal protection under the 14th Amendment.
And Dave, the people are still in line here to get their marriage licenses at the Salt Lake County Clerk's office. We were told that even though the building closes at 5 o'clock today, everybody who is in line right now at 5 o'clock will still get their marriage licenses. There's got to be at least 100, if not more, people in line to get the marriage license.
Well, Dave and Deanie, as you know, marriage licenses are issued by each individual county. Salt Lake County, the largest county in the state, was the first to begin issuing these marriage licenses. Others, we have an up-to-date look at just what counties are issuing them. A lot are still making the decision right now. If we can pull up that map of what we found so far. So far, we know that Cache County and Salt Lake County are the only counties to officially begin issuing these marriage licenses.
The governor and acting Attorney General Brian Tarbett have officially appealed this ruling. They filed the paperwork just a little bit ago in the 10th Circuit Court of Appeals. The statement from the Attorney General's office tonight says this: the federal district court ruling that same-sex marriage is a fundamental right has never been established in any previous case with the 10th Circuit. The state is requesting an emergency stay pending the file of an appeal.
We're married!
Michael Ferguson and Seth Anderson couldn't believe it when they heard the news.
Both of us just looked at each other and we were like, oh my gosh, what do we do? Do we go? Yeah, we're going. Okay, let's do this.
They rushed to the Salt Lake County Clerk's office, and in less than an hour after a federal judge's ruling, became the first same-sex couple to be issued a marriage license in the state of Utah.
Hopefully other people start showing up and get married while they can.
And boy, did they. As word started spreading, hundreds of gay and lesbian couples arrived at the clerk's office to get a marriage license. They wanted to get it today, just in case another federal judge granted Utah an emergency appeal to pause issuing more marriage licenses.
A marriage license that says for the state of Utah. It's amazing.
Michelle Muir and her partner were Utah's second same-sex couple to get a marriage license.
I knew it would eventually happen, but not so soon.
By divine authority of Almighty God, now pronounce you wife and wife.
A pastor from a Baptist church arrived at the clerk's office to perform marriage ceremonies and sign licenses.
We've been working at this for a long time, and people have been waiting a long time to be equal in the eyes of the law.
It is an enormous day for Utah, and not only for same-sex couples, but it brings equality to the entire state and puts us firmly in this century.
Judge Robert Shelby refused to block his own ruling from Friday, saying the state of Utah failed to present new arguments that would have allowed him to grant the stay. Instead, he said the state used the same arguments he already considered in his Friday ruling. Now he said it's time for, quote, me to step aside and let the 10th Circuit consider the case. So, at least for now, that means county clerks across the state are obligated to issue marriage licenses to same-sex couples, at least according to the attorney for the plaintiffs.
The law in Utah is same-sex marriages are legal, and until and if that changes, people must comply.
But the acting attorney general urges counties to seek advice on what to do.
County clerks should listen to what their county's attorney tells them. It says who their legal counselor. That's what we said from the jump on this.
Declare you legally married.
Unplanned and certainly low cost, Utah Senator Jim DeBackus and his partner Stephen Justison rushed to tie the knot.
I still can't believe that we're doing this in Salt Lake City, and it's happening.
You know, we always hated those weddings that are way too planned out. You know, this gave us a good 45 minutes to get married, and that's about all the wedding planning that is necessary.
After 26 years together, the couple hadn't expected today's ruling and, in fact, weren't supposed to be in town. But Mother Nature had postponed their travel plans.
We're headed to Mexico.
We're actually supposed to be in Mexico now, but the storm yesterday, we were on the plane and they shut the airport down. Yeah. So it's just kind of the strange coincidence that we're actually here.
Longtime friend, Salt Lake City Mayor Ralph Becker, who presided over their ceremony, couldn't be more thrilled.
It meant that two people who love each other are committed to each other and are going to be able to live their lives the way that they want to under the laws of the state of Utah. And and it's thrilling, really.
Word had already started to spread about the state's intention to appeal the federal judge's ruling.
You mean the governor won't be sending a gift? I mean, I'm a little appalled. We're just thrilled for so many families across this state that won't get the message that they're second-class citizens.
With that, the couple signed the paperwork, and tonight they are officially married in Utah. Debbie Dujanovic, KSL 5 News.
This is KSL, your news specialist at 5.
We've got breaking news to report now live from Chopper 5 near Farmington. You can see that car right there. That car has been the subject of a long-standing police chase on Highway I-15. Troopers have been trying to catch this driver. They started in Lehigh and then went north at high speeds. And this is now in Davis County. He'd been riding for several miles just on his rims.
Yeah, well, speeds reached over 100 miles per hour at one point during this chase. No confirmation yet on why this driver took off. Dispatcher saying that spikes were laid out. We think that happened in Salt Lake County. KSL viewer told us that he saw a truck in his rearview mirror near Thanksgiving Point, and that truck cruised on past him. You can look at this. Seems like they're being very careful as they make their way up. The man is coming out of the car. His hands are up. And right now we're live up in the chopper. These are all pictures from Chopper 5 right now as we're watching this thing play out.
You can see this guy getting out of his car. His hand is up. These officers have been, like we said, chasing him for quite a while. So it appears that at least they've blocked off part of the freeway, or they've got several cars there waiting for him.
Interesting. His hands are now back down, and it appears that he's just kind of trying to figure out what the conversation here. Yeah, some kind of negotiation is going on. We do know that the north end, from this point on I-15 up north, it has been shut down. Wow. So that's Kaysville, Farmington area.
You can see this is becoming a defensive. They're taking cover behind their cars. I mean, we're watching this play out as you are. Officers with their weapons drawn as this guy is appearing to try to talk to them or trying to reason with them. While we are watching this, let's talk to our chopper pilot, Ben Tidswell, if he can hear us. Ben, can you explain what happened from the time they were chasing him on his rims till the point where he is now pulled over here in the emergency lane?
Yeah, well, actually, just in the last minute, the SWAT vehicle has come in and actually done a maneuver where they pinned him, where they spun him out. He drove from somewhere in North Salt Lake on his rims all the way up here to the Kaysville, just south of Layton area, actually. I see probably about 30 police cars down here, and traffic is completely blocked off I-15 northbound. When the SWAT vehicle came up, as you noticed, he did initially hop out of the car with his hands up. At this stage, there are a large number of weapons drawn, a couple of police dogs around, and I'm really not sure exactly what's going on. As you can see, he's just hopped back into his vehicle, and this is a pretty fluid situation up here at the moment.
You can see there's a dog there on the scene. Again, officers taking cover with their weapons drawn behind cars, a SWAT vehicle, and strange to see that this guy doesn't seem to be taking this too seriously. No, and I'm wondering,
Ben, if we can go back up to you, I'm curious if we widen out on this shot a little bit, because we do see that SWAT vehicle. Oh, wow. We see another police vehicle, and it looks like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 officers. You got the dogs. Okay, so that kind of opens things up and lets you know what kind of team they've got behind them. Looks like a full force here. Ben, any idea if there's anyone from, I guess, coming from the north, making their way down south to get him on the back end?
I'm sorry, I didn't catch what you were saying there, but yes, at this stage, things are still pretty fluid up here. We watched this guy for a while as we were flying along beside him. He was actually quite calm and was drinking some kind of liquid, threw a couple of glass bottles out of his vehicle, had a smoke even. He seems to be not too concerned about the whole thing, but obviously this is a pretty major deal with a lot of police activity and presence up here.
Hey, Ben, while we are dealing with an emergency, this is also rush hour commute. Can you tell us traffic-wise what the implications are for people driving to and from work tonight?
This is going to be a major issue. I see traffic northbound and southbound completely blocked off. They're just letting the last few cars pass the scene southbound, and it's blocked off north of us about 2 miles up around the Layton area. This is going to have a huge impact, and I suspect that Highway 89 is going to be heavily impacted with a lot of traffic and a lot of issues with the afternoon commute. This will take a while to resolve.
Oh yeah, you can see the freeway there at a standstill. And that, you know, I-15 is normally very crowded right now with people commuting home. So
there's probably close to 20 cars, at least what I was counting right there, with you know, police personnel in there. And you can see, again, they're all taking cover right there. They all have their weapons pulled, at least a good number of them do. My question is they're doing this, and it's hard to see from this. I don't know, if, Ben, if you can see something differently than what we can. Does the suspect in this car, does he have a weapon at all? Have we heard anything like that coming from police?
We haven't seen any evidence whatsoever of a weapon. This gentleman just appears to have been, for the most part, pretty low-key about it. We're trying to push in a little bit and see if we can see anything.
He has something. Yeah, he has something, Ben.
He does appear to have something. So this is the first evidence that we've seen of a weapon of any description since we've been on scene here.
it's like he's almost trying to hide it. I mean, that's what it looks like as you get in close there, Ben. He's holding it behind his leg, and he's almost kind of angling it off from that SWAT vehicle.
Yeah, that's correct. This is the first evidence we've seen of a weapon. He hasn't brandished a weapon up until this point in time, so this is obviously, as I said, a pretty fluid situation up here, and I think just to calm things down a little bit from our angle, we're going to pull off a little bit and move away a little bit more, just to give the police a little bit more room to do what they need to do.
That's a good idea. Ben, as this chase was going on, do you have any idea what started it or how it got to this point?
At this stage, we haven't had any information regarding what caused it. It's obviously something that has upset this gentleman. He's driven at speeds up to 100 miles an hour from all the way across from Lehigh. They've spiked his wheels. In fact, at one point in time, we were looking at one of his front wheels had disconnected itself and was completely sideways to his direction of travel, and he wasn't stopping for anything. So it's something that's clearly upset him, whatever it has that's gone on.
Again, it looked like they were trying to negotiate with him. We're showing this video. This is a video that was taken right before. I don't want to say this thing ended because it hasn't ended, obviously, but before this man came to a stop, this car came to a stop. Starting from the point of the mountain, as Ben talked about, we're not quite sure why this all started. Making his way at high speeds, close to 100 miles per hour, and making his way up there. And as he's gone into really Davis County here, you can see there on your screen, he's riding on his rims as some stop strips. They believe in Salt Lake County is where they flatten his tires. So he was riding, look at that, riding on the rims for quite some time.
They're moving in. Look, let's go back to our live picture from Chopper 5. There we go. They're moving in on that car.
He was shooting at officers, but when he had nowhere else to go, he gave up.
After dozens of cabins vandalized all across the state and years of searching, finally, tonight, Utah's mountain man is behind bars. KSL News has been following this story since it first broke, and today we were the first on the scene after 40 officers surrounded Troy Knapp in a very remote part of Sanpete County, leaving him severely outnumbered and outgunned as well.
News specialist Sam Penrod has covered this story for years from the beginning, and now a new chapter. Sam?
Well, Deanie and Mike, it's really a remarkable thing that Troy Knapp has finally been arrested. Of course, he's been notorious throughout all of Utah for years now. When they arrested him today, we're told he was armed with 2 rifles and a handgun, and that he actually fired several shots at officers. No one was hit. We understand that one law enforcement officer shot one time at him. He was not hit. So it ended peacefully. Knapp has been, of course, breaking into cabins. He's been stealing food. He's been living in the cabins. He's been getting away with supplies and weapons. And finally, his time on the run is over.
The mountain man Troy Knapp is in custody.
Those are the words Sanpete County Sheriff Brian Nielsen has wanted to say for months after Troy Knapp was caught on surveillance video at a cabin in his county in October. Chopper 5 shows us exactly where Knapp has been hiding out in recent weeks, in remote, high-elevation cabins near Farron Reservoir. But as law enforcement moved in this morning, Knapp was caught outside. He initially resisted, firing 10 to 15 rounds at officers and the Department of Public Safety helicopter, before surrendering.
We've known all along that he's been, that he's going to be violent, and he was. This was not just a walk up and put cuffs on somebody. This was something that was a lot more serious.
Authorities were tipped off that Knapp was in the area after 2 men hunting antler sheds encountered him on Friday. Early this morning, an army of law enforcement moved in.
If you look at the mountain today, the conditions aren't great, but this is the time that we thought we could get him, and we had to move, and it worked out.
Photos released by the Emery County Sheriff's Office show it was a team effort of several agencies who worked together to finally bring Troy Knapp to justice.
It really is about teamwork, and so those agencies involved have got to get credit. This is a huge apprehension and an outcome to something that we've been worried about for a long time.
Troy Knapp is en route being transferred here to the Sanpete County Jail in Manti, where he will be kept in custody. Not only will he face the long list of charges for burglaries in several counties in Utah, but he's going to face some serious charges here relating to firing his weapon at the officers. Those charges are forthcoming here likely in the next couple of days, we're told. But of course, it is a huge sense of relief for cabin owners in the area. You'll hear from a cabin owner from the area where he was arrested today, and we'll have much more on today's arrest of Troy Knapp coming up on KSL 5 News at 6.
From start to finish. All right, you've been there, Sam. Thank you. And as Sam mentioned, a tip from a father and son started the whole process that led to today's capture of Troy Knapp. This weekend, they came face to face with a fully armed mountain man on a dairy trail at Farron Mountain.
He says, "Oh, it's okay. I'm not going to shoot you guys," which I was grateful for. It's an odd comment, but it's nice to know that he didn't plan on shooting us too.
All right, well, Troy James Knapp has been a fugitive for years, as we've been telling you about, known by many as the Mountain Man. He's believed to have broken into dozens of cabins in southern and central Utah for at least 7 years.
Tonight, a search for 2 men accused of shooting and killing 3 people in Midvale.
We have team coverage with exactly what police know as night falls and the impact this massive search has had on schools and on the neighborhood.
We want to turn our attention to a very important issue here in Utah facing every community within our state.
Mothers and brothers and sisters and friends of people that have gone through this, and we come together and support each other.
Tonight, with your help, we hope to break the silence on suicide.
Talking is the key, and there's hope.
We've gathered state leaders.
And it has been kind of a taboo subject. It is heart-wrenching.
Experts and families to open the dialogue.
The belief is that if we start talking about it, it's going to give kids ideas. As a parent, if I talk to my son Dave, he's going to go out and kill himself. Where the reality is, they've already thought about it.
We'd like to take a moment and thank you for helping us break the silence on suicide and let you know we plan to continue the conversation.
So many have responded to last night's commercial-free special, and we've been reading all your comments and emails. We'd like to share a couple of those. One parent wrote in to us, "After your program, we shut the television off and had an in-depth conversation with our youngest daughter. You've started something now that cannot be confined to just one episode or broadcast. We must continue this dialogue, and as a parent, we need this type of support."
We heard from a medical doctor who has struggled with depression most of his life, and he said, "I'm 44. I've struggled with suicidal thoughts since age 6. It's taken this long in life to finally come to grips with the idea that I belong here, that I have a place in this world. Your articles and the stories of those you interviewed have touched my heart." We want you to know your comments mean a lot to us personally, and we will work hard to bring more attention not only to suicide but also to mental illness.
You can find more articles, information, resources on KSL.com, as well as the entire Breaking the Silence on Suicide broadcast. It'll also re-air Sunday night at 11:30 here on Channel 5.
Take a look at this. So we're going to take a moment here and give you a little perspective on just how large this thing is. From the air, it's hard to tell exactly just how much this slide covers, but I want to show you something right about there. You see that? That's a cluster of dump trucks that look like ants from this perspective here. But those trucks are enormous. In fact, they're so big, they have to be brought into this mine in small little pieces, and then they are assembled on site. Now, take a look at this. It's a tire of one of those trucks. See that? About 12.5 feet tall, much taller than even a large size SUV. Those trucks are about 51 feet long, 29 feet wide, and each takes up about 1,500 square feet. That's about the size of a medium-sized house. So when you look at these pictures again, if we're going to show them for you here, of the 7 dump trucks piled up at the bottom of the slide, consider that amount of space that we talked of there, those 7 trucks, taking up about 10,500 square feet, which, when we pull away from this shot once again, those 7 trucks, or 10,500 square feet, as we said, they take the form of this tiny ant-like picture here. Deanie?
Wow, that does show the perspective, Mike. Thanks. Here's a serious question. Have you ever driven distracted, really? Every year, hundreds of thousands of people are injured or killed because of it. And socially, it often seems acceptable. But legally, does more need to be done? Mike spent the last several weeks investigating this issue on Utah roads. What did you find? You found, I've seen some of the findings.
Yeah, we found quite a bit, and we're going to show you here in a second. But how many times have you been traveling down the road and the driver next to you was doing what you're about to see right here? You know, head looking down, typing away on that phone, sometimes steering with their knee. So with a camera in the back of our car, we logged hundreds of miles, witnessed dozens of distractions, and questioned whether Utah's laws are tough enough for tonight's IN Report. Hard to imagine, but there was a day when getting behind the wheel meant just one thing. We're talking about driving, but fast forward more than a century, and that one thing seems to have turned into about 100, from puckering up in the rear view to shooting off a text or two. In short, it seems driving has taken a backseat to just about everything else in life. And the reality is the consequences.
I flipped in the air and landed on the concrete. Are
becoming more and more real.
I looked over and I seen my leg and I just started screaming. I could see like my bones sticking out. I could see everything. The pain was excruciating. It was really bad. I could feel my blood. It was like boiling.
18-year-old Carrie Houston nearly lost her life that night, and her leg is still in jeopardy, nearly severed by a man allegedly drinking, driving, and texting.
I just barely got hit by a car, you know, and they didn't know it, and yeah. It was really emotional, really traumatic.
In a split second, Carrie's life changed. A 2-word text, and she is now another statistic. Numbers show more than 1,200 people are injured every single day because of distracted driving. Another 15 are killed. Do the math, and the National Safety Council estimates every 24 seconds there is a cell phone-related accident. And if you're finding that hard to believe, just take a look at what we found. KSL spent 5 days driving up and down the Wasatch Front, and we didn't have to look hard to pick out the distractions. There was talking, there was reading, there was primping, there was eating. We followed this woman engaged in some major multitasking along I-15, trying to find a balance between lunch, fiddling with her phone, getting a good read in, and finally breaking out the pen to add a few words.
They seem to lose regard for everything else going on around them.
Ian Peterson's been driving a truck for about 14 years now and says he has seen and heard it all. Drivers changing clothes, eating a bowl of cereal, heating up the romance, and get this.
People changing who the driver of the car is while they're going down the road.
All that while clipping along at freeway speeds. But the reality is that's really not the norm. In our investigation, the one thing that over and over caught our eyes is that many drivers are not using theirs. Chatting it up on her phone, this driver in Salt Lake repeatedly went hands-free from the steering wheel, at one time for 11 seconds straight. In Davis County, we caught this car straddling the line, eventually fading into the lane of another car. A closer look here, and the reason becomes obvious. Eyes on phone, phone in hands, and for 22 seconds, it is still unclear how she was even steering it.
Who would you have die in a car crash?
Your neighbor?
Your friend? Your brother or sister?
Your spouse?
Your child? Fact is, any death on Utah's roads is one death too many.
That's why KSL News has teamed up
with UDOT's Zero Fatalities program
to drive home information that you need
to help you,
your friends, your family
come home safely every time.
Join us
on the road to zero fatalities.
Only from KSL News.
I've had zero training handling a gun, but I've gone through a concealed weapon permit course, and I can now carry.
Caden Adams is focusing on one target.
I passed the written test, so now it's just the shooting test I need to pass.
Caden and 10,000 other people in Utah will go through the Hunter's Education course this year with a key lesson in mind.
If you don't have the safety that goes with it, it can end in a real tragedy.
Okay, to bring your shot.
Gun safety is learned even before these students leave the classroom.
Make sure you maintain a grip on the gun when you take it out of the case. So when you pull back,
they're then put to the test at a shooting range.
People in the class learn how to handle the gun and how to fire it.
In a 3 to 6 week course, they learn hunter responsibility and firearm safety. Compare it to a concealed weapons permit course, only 4 hours, and students never shoot a gun or even hold one.
I've had people who have never even handled a gun.
And here's what's ironic. In one class outline, a frequently asked question is, do participants have to shoot a gun? The answer, no. This greatly increases the safety and relaxed atmosphere in the classes.
We always like to hear the stories we do here at KSL 5 make a difference in someone's lives. And so we were pleased to hear back from this man that we profiled recently. He was hard to forget. News specialist Keith McCord has an update about a guy who never gave up on his efforts to provide for his young family.
This was Wes Gledhill a couple of weeks ago, homeless,
Thanks, man.
Standing at the bottom of an I-15 off-ramp with a cardboard sign. But when he ran up to a car window, he was not getting a handout. He was handing out his resume. He did this in the bitter cold for hours each day.
It definitely has a lot of embarrassment to stand here doing this.
Well, it all paid off. This is Wes Gledhill today.
Well, it's nice to be warm.
He's now working full-time in the warehouse of eReplacementParts.com in Midvale.
It's very fulfilling. I love it. I love having that alarm go off at 7 o'clock in the morning. That feeling of just go to work.
Wes's resume indicated that he had worked at shipping and receiving type jobs in the past, and that caught the eye of his new employers, who are adding staff for the spring. But they were really impressed with Wes's unorthodox approach, that is, standing at the off-ramp.
That really showed a lot of character to me, and I thought, you know, that's the kind of person that I want working for me.
As the name suggests, eReplacements Parts is a company that sells all sorts of items that will keep your gadgets operating.
So if somebody's drill breaks, their washer, their dryer, their blender, their lawnmower, their weed whacker, we sell replacement parts for the do-it-yourselfer.
All those parts have to be organized in the warehouse to be ready for shipping, which is where Wes and his co-workers come in.
Yes, that's where I'm the best at, and that's where I'm stationed at now and doing really well at it.
When we first met Wes under the freeway, he and his fiancée and young daughter were living in the homeless shelter. They're in an apartment now, and things are looking up, which is why Wes was out here in the cold in the first place. He said he wanted to have a regular lifestyle.
Feels great knowing that I'm going to be getting a paycheck now.
And that first paycheck comes tomorrow. Keith McCord, KSL 5 News, Midvale.
Utah became a state in 1896, and there have been few that have made a greater impact in local business, entertainment, and community service than Larry H. Miller. Today would have been his 69th birthday, but complications from diabetes took his life 4 years ago. Tonight, his sons, Steve and Brian, speak candidly with me about their dad, his legacy, and how if he'd done just a few things differently, he might still be here.
Wow, I think the coolest thing about my dad was really his mind. It was the way his mind worked, but also the way he interacted with people. He was just so simple. He just understood people and he loved people. And that was evident in the way he lived, in the way he worked, everything he did.
Steve, what was the most misunderstood thing about your dad?
Although he wore his heart on his sleeve and it wasn't unusual for him to cry in a press conference or whatever, I think that a lot of people saw him as being very business-minded, and that being compassionate and being an entrepreneur and a business person were not compatible, but that simply couldn't be further from the truth.
I have to say it's been the most physically challenging time of my life.
My dad wasn't a guy who complained, so when he was having ailments, we weren't always aware. And I'll look back on even the last 5 years of his life, and I'm surprised at how quickly he deteriorated.
It'll bite me for sure for saying this, but I think all my issues to get better are dealt with now, and that I can just work on getting better. And
it took me by surprise, frankly. You know, I'd always seen my dad
be a little slow getting out of a chair. But as the slide happened more and more quickly, as we started laying the pressure on him to make course corrections, it was too little too late, and the damage had really been done.
It seemed like the blink of an eye before we were at the hospital and his legs had been amputated. And so definitely there was an acceleration at the end, which was the compounding effect of all those years of neglecting his health or maybe even abusing his body.
It was really a hard thing to go through. It's something that's with me every day. It's literally with me every day, and I think about it every time I have a meal. I think about what it's going to do. I try very, very hard to get all my workouts in every day, and I try to remember that you can slide by degrees and that it doesn't happen overnight.
I'll look at my dad and to see what work he did and the sacrifices he made and the benefit that has yielded in terms of jobs and what it stands for in the community and the education it's provided, the scholarships and the philanthropy, and obviously there's a lot of good there. Couldn't he have done all that and made a few small choices to have been healthy and to still be with us doing those things?
I think that if he could pen a letter, he would say, you know what, it's a terrible price to pay. I did it the hard way. The price that I paid in neglecting my body, what I achieved for that, it's just not worth it. And family is more important. It's not a tough thing to do, taking care of yourself, exercising, eating right. I think that that's what he would endorse.
The facts are shocking. 1 in 4 Utahns is obese, and the numbers are rising.
Obesity-related healthcare costs could increase by 4 times in a few short years.
It's time we all take control of our lives and our health. That's why KSL News
and Intermountain Healthcare
are teaming together to make 2013 the year when
each of us lives well and enjoys better health.
Watch for weekly features and reports from KSL News
and feel better with your life,
your health.
Nearly everyone can think of an instance where they were either bullied or they witnessed it, and it can have lasting effects. Yet the problem continues to grow in our schools, and the mother you'll meet in tonight's IN report says bullying drove her son to end his life rather than face it another day.
He was in 7th grade, an athlete, loved everybody.
13-year-old Buddy Peterson was always a happy child, according to his parents, Bud and Karen. He was most at home on the football field, but behind his big smile and sweet nature, he was suffering.
All he wanted to do was go to school and fit in.
Fitting in proved to be a struggle for Buddy, a big kid who loved to learn. His parents wanted to challenge him academically, so they moved him out of his public school and into Alianza Academy, a charter school in Magna, when he started 6th grade. But soon, the normally anxious learner didn't want to go to school.
It was a fight to get him out of bed in the morning.
Buddy finally told his parents he was being bullied at school. Karen and Bud say they immediately called the school administration looking for a solution. They say they were in constant contact with the school and say they were told the kids responsible wouldn't be attending the next year. But they say several of those students were readmitted. And when Buddy entered 7th grade, it started right back up.
And so they would badger him and bully him and hit him, both mentally and physically, until they saw an adult coming.
Halfway through the year, they tried to transfer Buddy back to his old school, but Jordan School District told them it was at capacity, and citing Utah law, they would not readmit him until the start of the new year. They offered to transfer him to a different school outside of his area, but worrying about uprooting Buddy, the Petersons chose to instead homeschool him. They had Buddy in counseling, and things seemed to be improving. But on January 13th, they learned just how much the bullying had affected their only son.
It was Sunday night. Buddy had just gone to bed. I can tell you it was 9:27 p.m. when we heard the shot. My world had just crashed. That my world had just ended.
Buddy left a note which referred to the bullying. We contacted Alianza Academy asking them about their procedures to address the bullying involving Buddy Peterson, but they declined our request for an interview, citing the Family Educational Rights and Privileges Act. They said in response to Buddy's death, they will increase their anti-bullying prevention policies, but would not give us any specifics about their current policy or plans to upgrade it. Utah's bullying and hazing law states each school must have an anti-bullying policy in place, but Representative Carol Spackman Moss, who sponsored that law in 2008, believes it needs to be updated. First and foremost, right now, the law classifies bullying as physical abuse only.
Bullying is not just physical, it's social and it's emotional, and it involves harassment, both verbal and other ways.
She believes the law should also include emotional bullying, abuse that is persistent, an imbalance of power, for example, a bully that is bigger, older, or several bullies against one, and an intent to cause harm. And she believes the law Jordan School District cited to prohibit Buddy from transferring back to his original school mid-year should be altered to include an exception for children who are bullied.
It's a cultural thing that I think is going to take everyone's cooperation to fix.
Few people understand the need for a culture change more than State Deputy Superintendent Brenda Hales.
There's a need for every school and every district to take a really hard look at what they're doing in terms of preventing bullying.
The State Department of Education has a model bullying policy available for schools to build upon, but Hales said they should consider a streamlined policy for schools rather than each school putting their own policy into action.
Don't let another child.
She says it will take more than a once-a-year training, more than a school assembly.
It costs so little to be kind.
Households, schools, and communities need to unite in a spirit of acceptance and kindness.
Be nice to each other. I want to be able to say that my son's death was not in vain.
Now, KSL wants to put a stop to bullying in Utah. This week, we'll be highlighting efforts in our community to end bullying, and we want you to join us. This Friday, we are designated Be a Friend Friday. In every newscast that day, we'll have information aimed at bullying prevention. We're challenging you to do something kind for somebody else and post a picture on social media using the hashtag #BeAFriend. That is the one thing Buddy's mother wanted everyone to do, Deanie, was just to be nice to everyone else.
Boy, and you can clearly see no one can afford to ignore these kinds of things.
For sure.
Helping your fellow man from the comforts of your couch seems like a no-brainer.
Yeah, we don't like to think that we would help someone in distress, but time and time again, research shows we don't.
News specialist Andrew Wittenberg is here with a special interactive report on the bystander effect.
Get Facebook and Twitter ready. We want all of you at home to be part of this story. We'll be asking you some questions and we'll show your answers live on the air. Whether or not we realize it, we've all seen examples of the bystander effect. Psychologists say people are less likely to help when more people are around. And tonight, we're putting Utahns to the test, as well as out-of-towners, to see if the crowd holds them back or if they jump into action.
Our hidden camera investigation begins on a cold January day in downtown Salt Lake. The outdoor retailer convention is in full swing, and our actor, a KSL producer named Matt, is ready for his chilly assignment. He poses as a sick person on the side of the street. And we'll see how long it takes for someone to respond. During our first scenario, our actor is slumped over near the steps of the Salt Palace, and within seconds, a group of OR attendees walks past. They all see him, but keep right on walking.
Okay, everyone, here's our first interactive question of the night. We want to know, how long do you think it took for someone to stop and help our actor?
Our camera focuses on this woman, Chelsea Tilley of Toronto. She stops before crossing West Temple. Our actor increases his calls for help.
I don't feel good.
I was just worried because he was like twitching on the ground.
Tilly thinks about it for a minute and 2 seconds. While we watch what unfolds, psychologist and University of Utah professor Dr. Paul White gives us insight into what's going on in her mind.
She's made contact with him, and so that's why she may be looking to see, is this a place where help is needed? And so as soon as one other person comes over, you see, then she comes over.
She finally stops after seeing another group about to approach our actor.
I'm actually totally fine.
We spill the beans on what's happening and confront our would-be Good Samaritans.
That's okay.
So we noticed that she was like looking at him.
I thought he was having a heart attack.
But besides her, no one else like stopped to ask if he was okay. So we were gonna walk across the street and just ask him, and then maybe call for help if he needed it.
Where I'm from, there's homeless people.
She said she hopes others would stop and ask if an apparently sick person needed help. But with this experiment, most did not. Next, we move our sick man to a place where we'll find more Utahns, and later we'll throw in a curveball to the equation.
First, our actor dresses in jeans and a sweatshirt, then in a shirt and tie. Log into Facebook and Twitter and tell us if you think he'll be treated differently.
With the bystander effect, the negative side of it is people don't help in these situations.
We witnessed the bystander effect for a number of minutes until this man in the blue sweatshirt thinks about stopping. Right on his heels, a trio of ladies stop immediately to make sure our actor is okay.
I think we all kind of noticed the person at first, and then we all kind of made the consensus that we should see if that person was okay.
For those of you keeping score, a full 5 minutes went by before the women stopped.
One of the big factors that people talk about is this idea of diffusion of responsibility. It's not my responsibility, someone else is going to help.
Here's the curveball. Our actor changes clothes into a dress shirt, tie, and khaki pants. Let's see what happens now when the person in distress looks like an upstanding businessman. In 45 seconds, it's a homeless couple who are the first to respond.
Hey buddy, you can't possibly tell me you're homeless.
30 seconds after we've set up again, this woman walks by, stops, looks back, and then keeps on walking. Fortunately for our ailing actor, Mary Woodhead is around. She admits the reason she stopped was because of how strange it looked for a businessman to be sitting on a sidewalk.
But he was very still, and he looked completely out of place, and I started to walk away, and then I went back and thought, you know, that's really weird.
Let's take it to the next level. When do you step in if you witness criminal activity, or do you stay away altogether? Time for our next interactive question. When are you not allowed by Utah law to make a citizen's arrest? Is the answer A, you witness a crime being committed, B, you have reasonable belief a person has committed a crime, or is it C, you may only perform a citizen's arrest on someone you know? The answer is coming up right after this.
Welcome back. Before the break, we showed you part one of the bystander effect. We rejoin news specialist Andrew Wittenberg now with part two, and make sure to keep social media close for this KSL interactive story.
Thanks, guys. The answer to our citizen's arrest interactive question, when are you not allowed by Utah law to make a citizen's arrest? The correct answer is C. In the state of Utah, you are permitted to make a citizen's arrest when you witness a crime or if you have reason to believe a person has committed a crime. But be careful, if you turn out to be wrong, you may wind up behind bars yourself. Our next scenario tonight involves a crime where someone could have made a citizen's arrest. And keep your phone or computer close. Another interactive question is coming up.
Salt Lake City's intermodal hub. It's a bustling interchange for thousands each day. We lock a bicycle up early in the morning and wait. When the crowds come, our actor begins cutting away at the lock with a hacksaw. Similar to our last two experiments, a lot of people seem to notice what's going on, and the passengers we met on the platform say they would confront our actor.
I'd do whatever I could to stop the person to do it. I wouldn't want my bike stolen.
I'd probably ask if he needed some help with something, just to kind of start up a conversation.
But that wasn't the case when the rubber met the road, or blade to bike lock in this case. First, 2 minutes go by, then 5 minutes. He's still sawing away. We get the picture. No one's stopping.
Next question for everyone at home. How many people reported the crime?
We're able to cut the bike lock multiple times and walk away. No one said a word to our actor. Some we met say there's a chance the actor might not have been stealing the bike at all.
I would trust people and think, oh, that's his bike and he forgot his combination.
Let's go back to Dr. White. He says this is another classic example of the bystander effect.
And again, that's the diffusion responsibility angle, I would think, there, because you've got the police, you've got UTA security. There are other people who should be watching out for any criminal activity, and they may interpret in their minds, if he's doing something illegal, someone else is going to stop him.
All right, for our final experiment, the answer to our last interactive question, guys, the number 1. One person reported that crime happening to authorities, to UTA security. The takeaway here, if you do find yourself in a situation, Dr. White says the best advice is don't just say, oh, I need help. Someone call 911. Say, you in the green jacket, I need help. You in the purple tie, call 911. Assign that responsibility and people are more likely to help. The same goes if you report a crime. Don't just think that someone else will call 911. Make that phone call yourself, because our research shows that not a lot of people will.
This is breaking news from KSL, your news specialists.
Just a freak accident that don't have time to escape.
Breaking news right now in southern Utah.
Massive boulder breaks free from a mountainside and crushes a home, killing 2 people inside.
Sound like an earthquake. A lot of vibration, cloud of dust, very hard to see, look like ground zero.
Now, you've seen the video there. Witnesses say the boulder is the size of a semi-truck and completely destroyed this house in Rockville, a small town just outside of Zion National Park. Now, police got the call just before 5 o'clock. This home used to be a 2-story log cabin. Well, tonight, it is barely recognizable. Authorities found 2 people inside. As mentioned, they did not survive.
Obviously, the large boulder's done a lot of damage to the house. Get some heavy equipment in and try and move some debris and secure the scene.
All right, now as for the rocks, officials are worried that other rocks may be ready to fall as well. Photojournalist Stace Hall has spent the night at the scene and joins us on the phone right now. Stace, what does it look like at this point down there?
Well, Mike, it's hard to imagine the magnitude of impact that struck the home in Rockville off SR9 this evening. The structure is not even distinguishable as once having 2 floors. Officials told me the main rock that came loose was the size of a tractor trailer. It fractured at the top, crushing everything in its path. There were also some concerns throughout the evening, as you mentioned, of possibilities of a second slide taking place. Springdale Police Chief Kurt Wright said recent frigid temperatures and freezing patterns are to blame. Well, neighbors were given the option to clear the area while the scene was being secured, but surrounding homes remained dark, the scene very somber tonight. Wright described the victims as being well-known and well-liked, that it's, of course, been so difficult to watch Rockville residents walk up to the area and burst into tears.
Hey, Stace, real quickly here while we have you on the phone. I mean, it's hard to imagine as you see this video here. What's next? What are people going to do now as far as authorities, officials down there? What is their plan next?
The plan throughout the evening, Chief Wright said, is to continue to monitor the area, but because of the frigid temperatures, all the snow in the area, there's really no chance of removing the victims' bodies until the morning. They just have to simply wait it out.
All right, Stace Hall live for us this evening in Rockville. Stace, thank you very much.
Falling rocks have been a big fear for folks there in Rockville for years, as large boulders have been crashing down for decades.
Yeah, in 2002, another large rock crushed a home. No one was injured there. Then just a few years ago, rocks started tumbling again. This was the area in 2010 when KSL crews were on the scene. A large boulder came tumbling down the mountain, and luckily before it collided with the home, it hit another large rock and broke apart.
We knew someday that would probably save our lives, and it actually did.
Everything seemed to explode and the dust came up. We noticed this big rock right here. It's the one that saved the house.
One piece did hit a shed, moved it off its foundation. Another ended up on the roof, and some went through the roof. A third chunk rolled into the home's mudroom. No one was injured in this slide either, but it did have residents looking up the mountain where another large rock was perched in a dangerous position.
After the first slide, Utah geologist Tyler Knudsen checked out the second rock. He was instantly worried.
There are areas where it looks like surface water is starting to erode underneath it, which every time it rains, it's probably destabilizing that rock a little bit more.
Knudsen told us back then that second rock will fall. It's just a matter of when.
Could be tomorrow, could be a week from now, it could be another 7-10 years from now. It's impossible to tell.
Officials said back in 2010 there were several options. They could try and stabilize the rock, or they could try to blow it into smaller pieces. Former Mayor Alan Brown told us tonight the State Geological Survey never made a final recommendation on what to do, and that rock that caused so much concern 3 years ago is still on the side of the mountain. Mike?
Well, the State Geological Survey did a complete report here on the rocks above Rockville, detailing what hazard they pose to the residents. The study was released in 2011 and had some startling findings and some warnings as well.
Geologist Tyler Knudsen wrote in that report, rock falls in 2001, 2002, and 2010 were preceded by relatively dry weather, and no earthquakes were recorded at that time. Knudsen determined these falls were likely caused by the effects of gravity and erosion. He then warned similar rock falls can be expected at any time and anywhere along the south edge of the Rockville Bench without warning or obvious triggering mechanisms. He went on to recommend a further detailed investigation and said owners of homes in that area should be informed of the hazard in case they want to hire their own geological team to evaluate the risk on their individual properties.
And certainly this is something we are going to be working on throughout the night. We have a crew on the scene right now and another team that is heading there to bring you the very latest on KSL AM starting at 4:30 tomorrow morning. And if there are any developments that happen overnight here, we're going to post those on KSL.com.
Another story we're following tonight is a weather system that's just trying to come in the door.
It's trying to break through and bring a little snow and maybe mix up the air just a little bit, but it doesn't look like it's going to hold together as it tries to get to Utah. Here's a look at what's going on around the region. It is 10 degrees in Boise, 15 in Salt Lake, but we've got rain and snow from Medford north to Seattle, and it's trying to head on in. The problem? Big blocking high pressures in the middle, and that will likely tear that storm apart before it ever reaches us. Here's your first forecast tonight. Mostly clear temperatures, still cold in the teens. We will drop into the single digits once again. Partly cloudy skies and smoggy for the morning commute, and in the afternoon, more clouds and smog. Coming up, we'll take a look at the weekend. I'll talk about when our next storm gets in here, how bad the air quality is, and how long it will remain that way. I'll have the details in the forecast in just a sec.
All right, Kevin, thanks. A man who had close ties to former attorneys general Mark Shurtleff and John Swallow has been charged with 6 felonies. And the case against Timothy Lawson could be a preview of what his 2 former bosses might face in the future. The charges are in connection to the ongoing investigation into allegations of wrongdoing by the Attorney General's office. Lawson was a close associate of former Attorney General Mark Shurtleff. He was known as his fixer. He's facing a list of serious charges, including obstructing justice, retaliating against a witness or informant, tax violations, and a pattern of unlawful activity. A top deputy in the AG's office said, quote, Lawson's the guy that's going to bring down the house of cards.
Click it or ticket. That's the Utah campaign that urges all of us to wear our seatbelts or face a fine. But an upcoming report raises some questions about whether law enforcement officers are actually following their own rules. News specialist Jed Bold joining us on the road to 0 fatalities with this story. Jed, what did you find out?
Yeah, Mike, that upcoming report out of California's Peace Officer Standard and Training estimates that about half of all police officers don't buckle up when they're on the job. Well, that news comes as a real surprise to Utah's Police Officer Training Director, who estimates that about 80 to 85% of officers in our state buckle up because that's the way they train.
Definitely keeps you safe out here on the road.
State Trooper Colby Garrick always buckles up, whether he's on the job or in his own car.
It's our policy that we wear our seatbelts.
But that's not the only reason.
We see tons of crashes out here on the freeway.
Too often, Garrick says, troopers respond to fatal crashes in which the victim would have lived had he only worn a seatbelt.
The stuff we see out here on the roads, it definitely helps me to remember every time I get in the vehicle to put my seatbelt on.
The UHP tells me that discomfort and fear of being caught in the buckle during an ambush are the 2 most common excuses that officers will give for not wearing a seatbelt. But here in Utah, at least, they train on getting out of the belt and getting out of the car quickly.
Bring our hand under the seatbelt, unlock it, and then at that same time we grab our door handle, open our door, and then we can throw our seatbelt out of the way so we can get out of the vehicle quickly.
According to the National Highway Traffic Safety Administration, traffic incidents, not shootings, were the leading cause of officer deaths in 14 of the last 15 years. Of the more than 700 law enforcement officers killed in a crash from 1980 through 2008, 42% were not wearing seatbelts. We spotted another trooper on the road, and he was wearing a seatbelt too. Garrick says it goes beyond department rules.
If I see one of my buddies not wearing a seatbelt, I'm going to ask him about it. Not only because it's our policy, but because I want my buddy to go home at night, just like I want to go home at night.
I also talked with Salt Lake City Police and Salt Lake Unified Police Departments about their policies. They also require their officers to buckle up, and also any other passengers or anybody who's in custody needs to be buckled in as well. The only exception with the UPD policy is that if they're getting ready to have to hop out of the car and chase somebody or execute some kind of tactical maneuver, then they can unbuckle just immediately before getting out of the car. Reporting live for KSL 5 TV, I'm Jed Bowl.
Well, get ready. Your next flight could be a lot louder. Coming up, the vote to allow cell phone calls mid-air and what flyers really think about the idea.
It makes you feel awesome.
He was supposed to have the trip of a lifetime with the Tooele High School Marching Band, but he got to Hawaii and spent the whole week in a hospital bed. Coming up next, how his family band members surprised him after his health scare half a world away. And the mystery's been solved. We've got the incredible end to a story you've been following with us for weeks now, and it's coming up.
All right, welcome back. We've been talking a lot about this lately. The proposal to allow mid-flight cell phone calls took yet another turn today.
The FCC voted, and those calls will now be a reality. News specialist Devin Dolan joins us. And Devin, this might be a case of be careful what you wish for.
Well, yeah, Deanie, if the ban is lifted, it would mean you could make phone calls on your flight. But of course, then you would also have to listen to. Excuse me, sir, I can't focus. I'm in the middle of a live shot here.
I can't believe how good it was. It was just
Whether you're walking, sitting, or standing, there's no excuse for not responding to a call or text message. In fact, people get concerned if you don't respond immediately. Your only refuge is the confinements of an airplane.
It's inconvenient, not being able to get in touch with friends and family.
But that phone call may be as soon as your next flight. The Federal Communications Commission voted to lift a ban on in-flight calls.
Where there is new onboard technology that eliminates that potential for interference.
The Federal Department of Transportation is against the action, stating it would be unfair to consumers. But not all flyers agree.
I don't think that there's really much wrong with it.
Are you sure?
Let's see how people really feel. Hello?
TSA wouldn't let me on an airplane.
Hi, how are you?
So I cozied on up at the airport.
Oh yeah, do you remember that time when we
held a fake conversation? I talked and talked.
Check out.
And people looked.
It is just going to be nuts.
Scratched their faces.
We could do lots of.
Glanced over again.
Really.
Tapped their luggage.
The most ridiculous thing.
Became uncomfortable. And when I left, no one, not a one, had a problem staring me down.
Your voice kind of dominated the area here.
But strangely, people became interested in my one-sided conversation.
But I wondered, without barging in on your conversation, who you might have been talking to.
And even when they felt they should stop eavesdropping, they couldn't.
I was like, I wonder what happened to this person.
But they only had to listen to me for a few minutes. Try hour.
That you're going to have to handle.
After hour.
I know she really likes that one sushi place.
On a long flight.
And the FCC is asking for public input, so you can head to their website and voice your opinion. But Mike, I must have some good fake conversations because everyone I talked to today was a little bit interested in what I had to say.
I'm nervous that you can talk to yourself for that long of a time, Devin. With no one on the other end, but great report. Thank you, Devin.
Playing in the Pearl Harbor Day Parade was an honor one Utah teen looked forward to for months. Instead, he spent that weekend in Hawaii in a hospital bed. Not the trip of a lifetime like he'd hoped. But today, his marching band had a little surprise for him. Tooele. Thursday, temperature 27 degrees. Performing in the snow is nothing new for the Tooele High School Marching Band, but a big change from just 5 days ago when they were performing in Paradise, Hawaii. Saturday, temperature 83 degrees. The Buffaloes were handpicked to play in the Pearl Harbor Day Parade on the island of Oahu, a performance they spent more than a year practicing and fundraising for. But when the team marched through the streets of Waikiki, they were missing one member.
I had an asthma attack.
Jacob Williams got extremely sick after landing on the island.
And apparently I had the flu too.
He was admitted to the hospital where he spent the next 5 days. He missed the ceremony, he missed the parade, and he missed sightseeing with his team.
He was on our thoughts and in our prayers every minute of every day. We talked about him. We prayed for him and his family.
Jacob's mom made the trip to Hawaii to be with him in the hospital. And after he recovered...
Did you get to see any of Hawaii after you were out of the hospital?
Yes, I did. We went to Pearl Harbor and just traveled around the island, and it was awesome.
But the best part of Jacob's trip may have come after he returned home, when his band showed up in his front yard.
1, 2, 3, 4. Come on.
We're just glad that he's back. He didn't have a chance to do everything with the band at Pearl Harbor, so we wanted to bring a little bit of it to him in this lovely weather.
Not only did the band surprise him with this street performance, turns out the team did a little extra fundraising while they were there to help Jacob and his family cover the added expenses.
So we bought this little coconut bank, and everybody put their spare change into it. And so we're giving that to you, and it filled up really fast. So we had to go buy another one. So
Thank you guys.
We love you.
It makes me feel awesome, like I'm part of a real thing. They're my family. It's not just a group of friends, they are my family, and I love them for it.
Jacob is back to full health and says tonight he is happy to be home. That's very nice. And how would you like to be the trombone player out there at 15 degrees?
Well, that's what I was wondering. Jacob's isn't Hawaii. Where's your coat?
That's right. Get a coat on that guy. I'm glad he at least got to enjoy some time there, and the band did a great job. Hey, the air quality, it is terrible outside along the Wasatch Front, and out and about, you're during the day, yeah, you see it, you feel it, but when you capture it at the end of the day on the sunset time lapse, you realize, look at that whole layer just trapped in the lower elevations, and it's hard to breathe, it's hard to get through, and it's not going away anytime soon. Let's go talk a little bit about that air quality. Up on the Bountiful bench, Ben Fuller captured this shot. You can get away from it in certain areas if you can get up high enough, but looking out into that valley, you can't see the lake, you can't see the island, you can't see the mountains, and it's just that choking air quality. Here's our current situation. Unhealthy in Utah, Salt Lake, Davis. Moderately unhealthy, Cache, Weber, Box Elder, Tooele, and Uinta. Duchesne is still okay for now, but all of this will likely worsen over the next several days as the inversion continues, the air quality worsens, and I don't see anything major coming in to help mix up the air and improve things. And these patterns, they can last 5, 7, 10, 14 days, depending on the overall pattern, and this one looks to hold right on through the middle part of next week. Where can you go to maybe get some blue skies and sunshine? Ray Boren, Zion National Park today. Look at all that fresh snow and blue skies and just incredible conditions. A rare sight to see that much snow in Zion National Park, and he said it just made for a pristine picture. Ray, thank you for sending it back. Well, let's talk a little bit about what's happening right now. It's 9 in Price, 3 Grand Junction, 5 in Delta. Mostly clear skies statewide. Temperatures again cold. 23 in St. George right now, but there is a storm system trying to get in from the northwest. The problem is this big blocking high pressure. You can just see the outline of those clouds that they just can't break through that high. Now, the high is moving enough to allow some clouds and part of this storm to make its way to Utah. That will happen tomorrow. A few mountain flurries not out of the question. The big problem is the high, it moves out temporarily. The little low pressure comes through, brings some clouds, brings some flurries. That's it, and then it's gone. And guess what comes back? The high pressure moves right back overhead, and we are socked in the inversion. We start getting little patches of fog in the overnight hours, and we hold to that air quality all the way through the weekend and into next week. Tonight, Montpelier, 7, Evanston 11, Bear Lake 11. Again, not quite as cold. We'll start to see some of those clouds start moving in the early morning hours and then filter into northern and central Utah throughout the day tomorrow. Temperatures in Price 26, but still extra cold. Roosevelt 15 below. Kanab will go to 38, St. George 37 tomorrow. And the 7-day forecast has us just adding a degree or two each day. We stay extra cold through Monday, and then we jump back out of it in St. George. We're actually up into the mid-40s for a change Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, but lows still stay single digits and teens for the next 7 days. Your northern forecast, overnight lows, sub-zero in Logan and Morgan, single digits, Salt Lake, Orem, Spanish Fork. Still a few little snowflakes in there over the mountains tomorrow, but this thing's looking wimpier and wimpier. I think we're just going to get clouds for 99% of us. The smog sticks around through Sunday, into Monday, into Tuesday. A little storm on the horizon Thursday, Friday might be the breaker, but until then, we're stuck. Grant will be here tomorrow morning. He'll also tell you about what to expect for the rest of the day and look ahead at your weekend.
So you're ruling out a Christmas storm?
A little too early, but we're crossing our fingers.
Pressure's on. Thanks.
Okay.
A 75-year-old mystery solved. Next, how homework that was never handed in made it into the right hands. The mystery has been solved. 2 nights ago, we told you about a South Jordan woman whose sister was killed in a school bus crash 75 years ago.
Yeah, South Jordan unveiled a memorial just last week, and during that ceremony, the woman was given a piece of paper that had her sister's name on it, but she never got the woman's name who actually gave it to her.
News specialist Alex Cabrera first reported this story and says that woman is no longer a mystery.
75 years and 3 generations later, these items
This is the funeral book.
still mean the world to Caroline Chamberlain. They are of her uncle, Carol Stevenson, who died in a school bus crash in South Jordan in 1938.
May we extend our deepest sympathies in your recent sorrow.
Last week, South Jordan unveiled a monument remembering the 26 people who died in that crash.
There was no doubt I was going.
So she left her Glendale home in Kane County and drove nearly 300 miles one way to go to the ceremony. But she also had an old piece of paper from that crash she knew belonged to someone else.
I knew that if I went to this ceremony, I knew that somebody would know who this was.
That paper seemed like a homework assignment and had the name Virginia Nelson written in pencil on it.
After all those years, it was still there. It said Virginia Nelson, just as plain as anything.
During the ceremony, when Virginia Nelson's name was read, she noticed someone stand up. It was Joyce Holder, Nelson's sister. Afterwards, Chamberlain gave her that paper.
And as we handed it to each other, our hands just touched, and we just spanned all those years. It was amazing.
And that was it.
Turned and walked away. I have no idea who she was.
We spoke to Holder this past Tuesday because she never got the name of who gave her the paper, and she was hoping to thank her.
Oh, it brings tears to my eye. It's amazing.
After our story aired, Chamberlain got in touch with us, saying she was the mystery woman.
My grandparents had memorabilia from that time, and apparently somebody picked that up and put it in his things. And so my mother didn't feel like she could throw it away, and I remember her showing it to me with those things.
Now she has another memory that is priceless.
It was amazing. It was just amazing. There was no words. We just stood there and hugged each other and cried. That's all we did. It was just amazing.
Alex Cabrera, KSL 5 News.
Isn't that wonderful? Now that they know each other, Holder and Chamberlain are hoping one day to get together.
What a story. It's interesting how things come together and people come together to make something like that happen. So,
We'll be right back.
We are continuing to follow this breaking story out of Rockville. Crews are keeping a very close eye on the hillside after a massive boulder came down today, crushing a home and killing 2 people inside. KSL crews will be live on the scene with the very latest starting tomorrow morning at 4:30. Join us right here when you wake up.
All right. Well, tomorrow with the air quality, you're either going to have to hit the slopes or hit the gym. Which is it?
One of the two. Gym for me.
Okay.
Hold your breath.